Yeah.
Where is he at? Get comfortable.
But even if you stand up, at least that's fine. Finally,
Ready? Good evening. We'll call the meeting to order. The board has been in closed session since 4 p.m. And we only discussed items that are reflected on the executive session agenda. There were no votes taken during that period of time. It was strictly for information. So now, before we can go into the open session, we must go through the process of moving from closed session to open. So I will ask them for a motion from someone on the board for a motion to move to open session.
I'll make a motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Madam Secretary, we need a roll call, please.
President Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Ruiz?
Yes.
Mr. Paul?
Yes.
Mr. Hernandez, yes.
We are back in open session then. So we will call the meeting to order for the regular monthly meeting of the school board. And so we'll call the meeting to order. And Secretary, we now need a roll call to show quorum, please.
President Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Ruiz?
Present.
Mr. Paul?
Present.
Mr. Hernandez, present.
Thank you. So we are good to go. We can please stand for the salute, the pledge of allegiance, and salute the Mexican flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Salute
The flag of the state of New Mexico is the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Thank you. All right, and with that, I will turn the floor over to Dr. Hernandez. Dr. Hernandez. Wrong doctor. Dr. Romero. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It is that time of year, it is January. This is the time of year where we will be electing our board elections. And so the board shall, at the first regular meeting in January, reorganize at the so choosing of the board from among its members. And the board shall elect a president, a vice president, and a secretary. The election of the board president will be conducted by myself. And then will then be through a ballot system, and then once we are able to get through that election of the president, I will turn it over to that president. Okay, once the vote is completed for the position of the board, like I just said, the board president is announced. The board president will conduct the elections for the vice president and the secretary. We do have a number of ballots, and so if you can pass out those ballots, we're going to go through the president election now. And if you'd like, go ahead and fill it out, board members, and then you can fold it in half, and I'll come by and pick it up from you, and then I will read the results for board president. Everybody have a ballot? Okay, we'll leave you to it.
You gotta pick it up or you
Yes,
gotta
I'll come by
pass
and pick it up, yeah, whenever you're ready. We have a tie.
All right.
So we have 2 for Mr. Anderson and 2 for Mrs. Hernandez. So we need to vote again?
Do it again.
Or should we wait for Mr. Deming?
Mr. T may not be here anytime soon. Mr. President, how would you like to proceed?
We don't have a second ballot, so we'll have to change maybe change the vice president ballot to president. I don't know what else to do. That's
Flip a coin.
Okay. Just change your vice president ballot to vice president.
Say that again?
I don't think, since we're using paper ballot, we don't have the second ballot. We just change the vice president one to
Oh,
president.
okay. You want to vote again?
We can just flip a coin.
I don't care. It's up to you. It's up to you.
Just flip a coin, I mean, that's the fairest that you can be.
Whatever.
Do what again? Flip a coin. 50-50.
Got a quarter? Anybody got a quarter?
I mean, to me, it's easiest way, I mean, it's not doing it all over again.
On there?
No, they got, yeah, I don't know what we're thinking.
Oh, that was a easy flip.
Heads.
Thing.
Fair?
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah. That's good.
Who got it?
Mr.
Mr. Anderson?
I'm sure that's good or bad.
You approve?
All right, then we will move on to the ballot for vice president. Fill out the ballot and do the same thing again. There you go.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Luis, you are unanimously voted in as vice president.
I like you better than me. You're much better. All right, thank you. You're accepting?
Yes.
I wasn't asked.
Yes.
All right, our last ballot then is for secretary, if you will.
Plus.
Thank you. Mrs. Hernandez, you are unanimously voted in as secretary.
Thank
You
you.
accept, all right.
I,
Not that you got roped into it.
right, not at all.
Proposition into it. Okay, thank you all, appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
From everybody, we'll do our best. We move then to the approval of the agenda. Are there any corrections or changes to the agenda as published? If not, may I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I approve. Make a motion.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Before we move into reports, I want to stop just for a moment. I think most anyone who's here who's a school district employee saw the email which came out a day or two ago on the passing of Dana Irby. She was an employee of the district for some time. She was actually a consultant before she was an employee. When Deming Public Schools discovered computers and discovered that teachers could do it in the classroom with students and accomplish positive things for students in the classroom, She started out as a consultant who came in here and taught teachers how to use a computer and how to use some of the software to use in their classrooms. So she went back to the time period when we first began using computers, and then eventually became a full-time employee for a number of years of the district. It was always a really funny story that it was strictly by accident that she wound up here, because I forget exactly how it happened, but she ran into Ted Bird at a conference, technology conference in California, and somehow the conversation came up. I think she had already been assigned by the company to come here and teach classes, but she didn't know us, and so she was introduced through Ted, and we started the relationship. That was kind of, but it was kind of a really interesting. She will be missed. She was living with her sister in Alabama when she passed away, so we will miss her. We might, in fact, have just a moment of silence, if you will, please, for her memory. Thank you. With that, we'll move then to reports, and we'll start off with Deming High School and early college high school reports.
Flip a coin, who goes first?
Don't do that.
Good afternoon, members of the board and new members. Welcome. Mr. President, Dr. Romero. We're speaking on behalf of the Student Council. I'm Jose Gandaria. I'm a junior class representative.
I'm Caitlin D'Arcy, Junior President.
I'm Daisy Munoz, I'm sophomore class representative.
I'm Stephanie Reese, and I'm Senior Class Secretary. I'm Heather McGowan, and I'm the Junior Class Secretary.
So, Student Council has been focusing on our upcoming trip to Albuquerque for the 70th NMASC State Conference. State Conference is an annual conference. It's a state conference. It's an annual conference that that offers many leadership experiences. Sorry, oh my gosh, this is my first time starting, and I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. Many leadership resources, experiences, and networking opportunities for students and advisors. It's also a great opportunity to go meet up with other student councils across the state with similar passions. Yeah, we've been really looking forward to it. Before we go though, all officers have been responsible for completing a task we call state projects. These state projects depend, what it is, it depends on what our positions are. For example, historians have to make a scrapbook. As for myself, a representative, we have to conduct workshops. So we have been working on our workshops, which are great team building activities or other kind of activities. Most of us are done. However, and we've actually practiced in class, in our leadership class. Yeah, it's a great opportunity, it's a great experience, and we're really excited.
The presidents, our student, first let me start off. Our student council is planning on attending State Conference 2020 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. As presidents, we have been working on the Children's Project Board, and this will display pictures and details with our collaboration with Play Charity. Students in our council took time out of the school to help paint and build furniture, and Play Charity plans on opening this March.
Good afternoon. Today I will be talking about what our student council vice presidents have been doing. And so far, as vice presidents, they have to come up with a chant and a roll call. And they've been working on that, and as vice presidents, they're also responsible for our banner. And they have come up with a general idea of how it will look, and they're on the way to make it happen.
So for the secretary officer group, they were in charge of completing the NMASC Student Council of the Year application. The application consisted of things that we had accomplished from March 2019 through January 2020. The application was broken down into 3 categories, which were school level involvement, district level involvement, state level involvement, and some projects that were a part of our accomplishments included environmental awareness, community service, citizenship, school service, staff relations, and Ribbon Week. Good afternoon. I'll be talking to you about what a historian has to do. As a historian, they will put together a scrapbook, as Steve mentioned, and it basically is a book of just pictures of things we have done from March 2019 to January 2020, and which will be used for competition during the state conference.
So that's what we've been doing. We're really looking forward to our trip. Wish us luck. Any questions? Thank you.
Yes. Good luck to you. Really accommodating.
Good afternoon, members of the board, Dr. Romero, Mr. President, congratulations. Good afternoon. My name is Dave Villagrana. I've been here a couple times, so you might remember me or something. I'm early college, high school president. So I'm going to start with our published newspaper. Early college, high school was published in the newspaper, and I'd like to share with you guys. It's been our second annual mattress donation. So although it says Miss Bailey's classroom, language arts classroom, it was student council from early college. So that was a bit of an error there, but it was student council, and we were pretty honored to be published. Last year we donated an air mattress as well, but this year we donated around 16 air mattresses to, I forgot the name, sorry. I apologize. But it's our second annual, and we donated on the 23rd of December. So our student council gathered, the representatives from the organization came down, and they gave us some talk about what their job is and what they do. So we were pretty grateful for that, and at the end of the day, it was 16 air mattresses that we donated to Luna County, to the organization. So we feel pretty grateful for this newspaper that was published on behalf of Early College. Another thing, our legislative trip is coming up in around 2 weeks. A week and a half, 2 weeks. So we have students getting ready, and I had the honor on going last year with Dr. Romero and a couple students from the high school, and it was a great experience. I experienced a lot. I pretty enjoyed those days over there, those 2 days, and it was pretty great. I came back and I told my parents about it, and I was pretty happy about it. So unfortunately this year I couldn't go. But I feel pretty excited for my classmates who are getting ready for that. It's a pretty great experience. So thank you for that opportunity. And for last,
Can you talk to us a little bit about what you do? Because when we come back, we can report out on what the experiences were. But what did you do last year?
All right. So last year we talked about, our bill was about. I don't remember, it was Bill 51 or 52, something around there, about talked about felony voting rights. So after felony convicted felons given the right to vote. So we gave our point. We were up there. We were with the legislature, and we stand up. We gave our points, and it was pretty great because the legislatures that were there, I mean, they all were hearing us. It was a pretty great experience to learn, to research about those articles and everything. It was a pretty great experience. We sat down with the governor, and it was a pretty great experience. And I sat right next to her, so that was an even better experience for me on her left hand. So it was pretty great being next to her. That room was full of other students as well. So it was pretty great because we got to ask questions. We got to talk to her a little bit. We went to her office. It was pretty great. It was a pretty great experience. After that, we went to the Oval Room and we just to the Roundhouse. Sorry. Then we just visited other places around there. So it was a pretty great experience. We were there. We stayed at a nice hotel. We got to miss school for 2 days. So but yes, it was an excellent
School in
experience.
Santa Fe.
So that's a little bit of what we did. So but once you're there, I mean, it's pretty great. It's unforgettable. Something I won't forget. It got me into wanting to maybe become a politic maybe one day. So it opened my mind, gave me another thing to consider. So it was pretty great, and yeah.
Perfect, thank you.
And our last thing I would like to show you guys is our social contract, capturing kids' heart. So that's our social contract that student council came up with about a week ago. So in one of our meetings, we decided to do a social contract for our student council, and students would come up and write words on the board, and we would truly enforce, that we would truly go through, so that we can this semester we can have a better student council than probably last semester than last school year semester. I mean student council. So it was pretty good because all of our students participated, wrote down a word, and we came up with put them together, and we're trying to really focus on this and I mean go through the semester with what we've signed to have a pretty great year. That's all. Any other questions?
Are you all going to the state conference?
No. I have no idea about that. So
We got to get you there next year.
I don't know. I mean, it would be pretty good, but it would be great as well, but I don't know about that.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The report from the National Education Association.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Romero, how's it going? So the first thing that I want to discuss is something that we did discuss at our last monthly meeting, and that was the idea of elections within NEA Deming. And we will be holding an election as per our bylaws in March. The call for nominees will go out, and then the election will take place in April. Even if nobody chooses to run, because it will be myself and our treasurer, Armino Zleta, who will be up for election. And even if nobody chooses to run against us, we will hold an election. We're going to do it via phone, and we're working on exactly how to do that with it being very private. David Selwyn, who's a teacher at the high school, will be running that blind. So he won't know who's voting, but he will be in charge of the voting for us. So we're working on that. We did have a great meeting last Friday with John Arthur Smith. It was extremely informative and great to sit down with him. He is so knowledgeable about so many things. It was really nice. So we had that with a couple of members that showed up and stuff, so it was a nice meeting. We also want to continue talking about the retention of teachers and this idea. We have to look at the fact that Deming does some amazing things. On a nationwide scale, we have schools fighting for things like nurses in every school. We do that. We have schools fighting for counselors in every school, and we have that. So we're already doing amazing things, but we still have to start to look at what we can do more. Sorry. So, looking at what we can do more, it's not an unusual thing to be looking at the retention of teachers and teachers across the board saying they aren't supported. This is a nationwide problem. We just have to start looking at what can we do one up. And so one of the things that I did was I pulled an article from Forbes magazine. Forbes magazine, very popular. So this article, though, wasn't talking specifically about education, but I still think it has a lot of value for us. And it was with 5,000 plus employees, $1,800, not dollars, sorry, too used to teaching financial ed, HR leaders, 800 business executives across 21 industries and 44 countries. And these are the things that they said that employees really want at work. And a lot of it doesn't seem to apply at first when we think about education, but when you really start thinking about it, it does. Very first thing is that it says that employees want flexibility. They would love flexible hour type solutions. And at first I was like, we can't do that because we have to be there when the students are there. But then I started thinking, wait, elementary students go home early. They go home around 3 o'clock. Teachers are there for 45 minutes after that. Why can't some teachers show up at 7:15 or 7:30 to do their 45 minutes extra? You know, I don't know. I mean, these are things that would have to be thought through, but there is a way to do it. And I mean, it's pretty significant statistics. It said 84% of working parents said work flexibility is the #1 most important factor in their job. And the second thing they said was work-life balance, ranking as a close second. And we know that teachers, work-life balance when the school year's going on gets kind of hectic. You know, the idea that I've got lesson plans to do and I've got to get materials ready, or I've got to, you know, be there when my kid gets home from school. These are real life struggles for teachers. Then they went on to talk about how people would like these flex benefits types of, and this was a really good point, is to say that many times we have stuff that we offer to employees, but we require the employees to act on it. And part of the thing in this, in a couple of places in this article it talks about, is how we need to, instead of changing that from the employee has to ask, changing it to the boss has to ask. The boss comes to you and says, hey, how would you like to do this instead? You know, how about this? And so that idea of giving them that voice and asking for their voice, not just, hey, if you're an outstanding person who, well, not outstanding, outgoing person who likes to speak up, but going and asking. One of the interesting things was commitment to health and well-being. And again, we know teachers sink everything into their jobs. And that's not just teachers. Sometimes that's our nutrition workers, our custodians. They all sink everything sometimes into their job. So one of the things they said was offer employees mental health days. And we've actually had this discussion before. I believe it was with the previous superintendent most of the time, but on whether sick days really need to be called sick days. Can they just be leave days? You know? And so that goes along with what Forbes is saying that people want around the world. And some of the last ones it talked about was the idea, and we have this in spades easily, but we can highlight it more, and it's working with a purpose. So we have a purpose as teachers. We are shaping the youth that are coming after us. And so we all know that. However, we have to begin to look at it a different way in how we phrase it to people. I was blessed enough to have my evaluator, and I'm also awesome enough to teach financial literacy, right? Real life things the kids are going to take. And my evaluator said to me in my last evaluation that she sees that what I'm teaching is going to go with them. She sees the value in how they're going to take this and it be a lifelong skill. Well, the reality is every single teacher should be hearing that.
Because if you teach second graders how to read, you're teaching them a lifelong skill. We know statistically that kids that read at an 8th grade level have a much higher chance of having a higher socioeconomic status once they become adults. So it doesn't matter if it's elementary or high school teaching financial lit. We have that value, and we need to be specifically saying to our teachers. So it's not necessarily, hey, your kids are getting ready for that test, look at that data, and data's important, but still, instead of look at that data, look at how your data shows that you're preparing your students. And so those are some of the ideas that we've come up with on what we can do next steps to start working on that retention of teachers. And we do have some other ideas that we'll be sharing here and there later on. Do we have any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a report from the division director.
We do. Mrs. Boggs is coming up today to talk to us. The floor is yours.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Romero. I have a team with me tonight. We're going to present to you information on the AMP grant, which is at the high school. I have with me Amber Renato Abbott, something like that, Karen Moner, and I'll let them introduce the students a little bit later. So the AMP grant is a grant that was given to us by the PED. It is to help keep kids in school and to get them graduated, keep them from dropping out. So that was awarded 3 years ago. We are in year 3. Our objective, as I said, is to keep kids in school. Our initial data wasn't too bad, other than our cohort graduation rate was at 59%. That was a concern. Our graduation rate annually is very close to what general ed has. But when you look at the cohort from 9th grade to 12th, we were losing a chunk of those kids. So this grant was to focus on how to keep those kids in school and getting graduated. So we identified 8 challenges. We had to have a way to identify those kids who are at risk. We needed interventions, and we had to make sure they had the best teachers. We needed to somehow collaborate our community resources and engage parents and get families involved. And at that time, we had a minimal work study program, very few kids and a part-time teacher. We wanted the school culture to be more positive than it was previously. And we had students who were not motivated to graduate. I'm going to pass this off to Ms. Abbott Granada.
So with this grant, we were able to purchase an early warning system software that implemented right into Infinite Campus. And we set up a variety of data points for us to pull out of. And so we were looking at 3 areas: attendance, behavior, and course completion. And so this just gave us the ability to track the data a lot easier, and statistically shows that if a student is flagged in one of these 3 areas, they have a 20% chance of graduating, which means they have an 80% chance of not graduating on time. And so that was what we were looking at.
And can I ask you a question? So these are identified special ed students, is that right?
Yes, so this grant was specifically for students with disabilities, and so
Okay.
that is where we started. A great thing, and as we go through, you'll hear how we've actually been able to move this throughout the entire high school. So looking at attendance, over the last 3 years, we've actually been able to increase our average daily attendance 1 to 3% per grade level, which is fantastic. And our students are averaging 1 to 3% higher than the general ed population on a daily basis. So looking at behavior, when we first started, we had 203 behavioral referrals. Last year, we were able to bring that down to 161 just by flagging them in the system and having those regular meetings with them and seeing what was going on. And this year, we're down to 46. So we've actually decreased our behavioral referrals in students with disabilities by almost 50%. And then looking at behavior that resulted in a suspension, we started with 44. Last year, we brought that down to 33, and this year we've only had 14 incidences that have resulted in suspensions, which we've decreased that by 32%. And looking at students who have graduated, when we began this, looking at the cohort, we had 19 students who graduated. Last year, we had 23, and currently we have 50 students on track to graduate this year with their cohort. And so that's increased our graduation 30%. also with this AMP grant, I was able to come on board as a transition specialist for Deming High School, and my primary job is to actually provide additional support to students with disabilities by building those relationships with their students and their families through phone calls home. I also do home visits on a case-to-case basis together with the truancy officer. Additionally, I see about 15 to 20 kids a day, providing them daily one-on-one support and small group interventions, as well as assistance when it comes to behavior, attendance, and course completion. And so part of this grant allowed us to really identify which teachers we were placing our students with. And so when looking at our teachers, we really wanted to pick the teachers that were highly qualified, that really understood working with SPED students, because it can be a challenge. And so we actually were able to provide those teachers with a stipend to help compensate having the number of extra SPED students in their classrooms. And we also were able to train them and give them resources to utilize within their classroom. One of the areas too that we struggled with the first couple of years was just trying to find those community resources. And there was minimal resources that we could find within our community. And so we started talking, and we actually now, with the work of the district, we are creating an interagency team to address these behavior issues, attendance issues, and course completion issues. And currently, in partnership, we have the DVR, JPO, CYFD, the resource officers, human services, Best Buddies, and an ECHO platform, which actually goes across the state with other school districts that are using early warning systems. Additionally, we also try to target family involvement. We address the issue by issuing our students golden ticket. These are actually a reward system that gives our students a golden ticket every time they participate in after-school activities or extracurricular activities. The golden ticket, they can then use it towards a class to replace one low grade, which gives them the opportunity to bring those grades up. We also increase our parent participation by 25%. Our IEP meeting as of today, just for the juniors and seniors alone, we had conducted 103 IEP meetings for juniors and seniors, and we had 98 meetings with parent participations on them. We also have increased our parent contact. That includes EWS meetings, which we conduct to target those individual needs of the students, phone calls and conferences. Last year, at this time, we had 996 parent contact. As of today, we had 1,495. One of the areas that this AMP grant has allowed us to really focus on was our work-study program. And at the high school, we really want to expand that program and work with the community into creating opportunities for our students to go out and really learn about professions that they want to go into. And so when we began, we had 15 students in our work-study program, and currently we have 49 students in our work-study program. One of the things that we were able to do with this AMP grant was, prior to this year, we had only a part-time work-study teacher, so he taught classes or did inclusion work, and then did work-study half-time during the day. He's now been able to move full-time to that. And with that, and with the work of the district, we actually were able to cut our transportation costs down by $4,000 a month just by having him on board all day, and he's able to transport the students back and forth from the job sites. So one of the areas that came up as we started looking at where we could work on was addressing the culture of the high school and making it more positive for our students. And so with this grant, we were able to bring in Capturing Kids' Hearts and train the entire staff at the high school, including EAs that worked with students with disabilities. And now it's fully implemented across the school. And so we were able to invest, our teachers are more invested in the success of our students and building that rapport with them. And I think that is what has caused our behavior issues to go down. Our students are wanting to go to class. They've built that relationship with those teachers. And so we've actually decreased our students' failing grades by 45%, which is fantastic. Okay, a few of our success stories for this year. We had increase of students with disabilities participating in after-school and extracurricular activities. At this time, we have like 10 students
were participating in football, 8 on basketball, boys basketball. We had 7 students in band, 6 in drama, and 4 in softball. And then this year alone, at the beginning of the year, we have 30 students who were at risk of not completing their high school diploma, but now they're on track to graduate. Additionally, 21% of our seniors last year are attending post-secondary training. 2 of them are actually attending Oklahoma Welding Institute, and they're scheduled to earn their welding certification this June. In addition to that, we had 2 of our students here that would like to share their stories with you.
Good afternoon, my name is Tico. I am a junior at Deming High School, and last year was a pretty tough year. I wasn't passing more than 2 classes, and I went to Miss Mosier and Miss Abbott to see if they could help me because I really wanted to be in a sport. And with their help, I joined cheer, so I'm now on the Deming High School cheer team, and I'm pretty much all caught up with everything and looking forward to graduating.
Hi, my name is Elsie. Well, I'm a senior at Deming High School, and Miss Abbott and Miss Moja have helped me so much. First off, Miss Abbott has, well, she helped me with my schedule. She made it more easier for me to reach my goal. So, and Miss Mosier, she's there, like, she's there for me. Like, if I need help with my assignments, she's the person I go to. They also helped me, they set up a thing with the DDR so I could become a nurse. So, I am thankful for you guys.
So just in closing, our average daily attendance has gone up to 91% projected. This is all projected for this spring. Our dropout rate has gone from 11.1% to about 3.5%. And our cohort graduation rate, as you heard, 59% to 89% projected this year. So it has had a tremendous impact on the school, our students with disabilities, and the school as a whole. Any questions?
Do any of your work-study students receive a stipend or pay for the sites they work at?
They do, and with this grant, we actually were able to set aside a portion of funds that go directly into work study and paying the students for their jobs. We're also looking at doing internships at different places, welding and getting into some of those other places. And then with the money that was set aside, we can work with the companies to offset that pay for them.
And can you tell us some of the places they're working?
So we have students, so some students are working at the high school. We have students that are working at some of the local auto body shops, Peppers, Walmart. We are trying to build it up where we can get some, so we have a bunch of ladies who want to go into cosmetology. So we're trying to work with the salons to try to get them into there. We have some working at the pecan farms and some of the other local farms doing agricultural things. So, I mean, we're utilizing whatever we can for these students.
It sounds fantastic. I mean, I'm very impressed. Good job.
Dr. Romero, your school principal report?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We have tonight Bell Elementary, and it looks like we have some excellent representation from Bell Elementary. Mrs. Reinhardt, it's all yours. Mr. Wyman, I'm going to leave the floor to you.
I'm just going to plug this in.
President Anderson, members of the board, Dr. Romero, thank you for having us present tonight. tonight we're gonna do something a little bit different than we've done in the past, and we really wanted to, we started brainstorming, what do the students think? We're doing a lot of changes at Bell, we've done a lot of work at Bell, we're like, what do the kids see? How do the kids view the changes and what we're doing? So we just asked them. And so today they're going to present to you what Bell looks like from a child's perspective. And before we start, we have two focus areas at Bell, data-driven instruction and observation and feedback. And you're going to get a glimpse of what that looks like with our students. And we wanted to share our data. And so before we turn it over to the kids, Mr. Wyman will be sharing our student data.
So the first thing we want to look at is our attendance over the last 3 years as we've taken a journey as a school with our kids and with our teachers. And you'll notice as you look at that the old goal kind of used to be 95%, and so I kept that graphic up there so you guys can see we've made some substantial gains there in attendance and having our students come frequently. With that though, this year the state will be changing to a focus on chronic absenteeism, which is basically students who miss 10% or more. So we've started to shift our focus a little bit toward that, but we're still very excited with the gains we've made there. With that said, over the last 3 years, like I said, we've been on a journey, and it's been remarkable to see not only what our teachers can do, but what our students can do. And so if you look at this, I don't know how many of you can read this out there, but the yellow line is Bell Elementary math, compared to the silver line, which is the state average for math across New Mexico. And so we were at 2.5% 2 years ago, and we, as a school, realized we've got to make some adjustments. And what's amazing is everybody made those adjustments as a team. And so then we made those gains to that second year, 6.7%. And so we were happy, we were excited, we were starting to make a difference and change some things. But that third year, our students outperformed the state average in math. And I'll tell you how exciting it is to see these kids stand up here and know that this is them, empowered by their teachers. And so then you look at ELA, and I don't know, again, orange is the language arts at Bell, and you see the state average in blue. And again, just that change over the past couple years has been incredible and exciting to see what our students can achieve. And we know they can achieve so much more. So with that, this year, we set some academic goals that were even higher for our students and for our teachers and for our school. And so we're setting a goal this year of attaining 44.5%. And those goals, they're long, tedious conversations. We're looking at individual student data. We're looking at teachers. We're looking at standards. And so what we're doing is we're setting goals with intention. So we're really excited to make that, that goal each year to keep continuing to increase what our students are able to do. And then you'll see the same thing with ELA. We set a goal of 47% for what used to be Park, and then was Tamala, and now it's Mesa. And then 85% in I-Station. And I know that I have to shave my beard if a certain teacher gets a certain percentage, and Dr. Romero is in that bet with me. So we may have less facial hair in a few months. I'm thinking we will. And so I want to talk about, I showed you last year, I showed you the last 3 years, but year-over-year comparison for December. And so you'll see that each of our grades has made substantial gains year-over-year, with one exception, and we're making some adjustments. Second grade, we had a situation that was outside of the school's control, outside of the students' control, and outside of an individual teacher's control. And so we had to make some adjustments. And at first, the data started to go down a little bit, and Ms. Escudero came to Mrs. Reinhardt and I and said, you know what, I want to give the instruction for all these kids because I know they can do it. And I'm just going to tell you, we've seen data since this. This is like the quarter data. And I just saw some data this morning, and it is going to be corrected quickly. She is giving these students and empowering these students to change and to continue to progress. And so it's the same with math. Year over year, and just to point out real quick, the third grade, 0% there last year is not an error. I mean, we had some areas we had to improve. And so we worked together again as a core team and as a team at school, and we've made some significant significant changes. So we're really excited to see that. And we're really excited to see, like, not only have we made gains over the last few years, but we're still pushing ourselves. The teachers are pushing themselves, the students are pushing themselves to attain higher, to think bigger. And so we're really excited, kind of just to go back to this, to see how far can we keep going, and how far can we go with that this year.
Thank you, Mr. Wyman. Before I turn it over to the kids, I want to talk to you a little bit about these students. These students are not standing up here by chance. They represent Bell's Kids Core Council, and to be a member of Kids Core Council, they first had to go through a rigorous process. And it was new. Mr. Leos is our Kids Core leader, and he's like, we want to make this not tough, but meaningful. So these students had to first put in an application that they're interested. Then they had to sit down and go through an interview process. Once they passed the interview process, they had to give a speech in front of the whole student body, demonstrating that they can be model students and speak in front of adults. And we're so excited that they're here tonight because this is one of their first times to practice, and they've been doing amazing things. And another thing that I did, when we were talking about our goals, I called the students into my office, and we all scrunched in there, and they were sitting on the floor, we were sitting everywhere. And I said, I want you to close your eyes, and I'm going to tell you our two goals at Bell: data analysis and observation and feedback. And I want you to close your eyes and tell me what it means to you. And so they closed their eyes, and I asked them, as they had an answer, I wanted them to come up forward and tell me what it means to them. And I said, here's the trick though, you can't say something that somebody else has already said. And so they really worked through the process, and tonight they're going to share with you what I heard for the first time last week. And before you start, students, would you say your name, your grade, and then you can share.
Hello, my name is Manuel and I'm in 5th grade.
You could do names first. That'll be okay.
Hello, my name is Xavier Monteria and I'm in 4th grade.
Hello, my name is Cameron Hernandez and I'm in 5th grade.
Hello, my name is Mackenzie and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Fernanda and I'm in 3rd grade. Hello, my name is Janelle and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Brianna and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Malia and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Maya and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Leslie and I'm in 5th grade. Hello, my name is Aubrey and I'm in 4th
The thing that I said was teachers and our presidents look at our CFAs and interims, and they talk about it on how they will be able to read the stuff that we struggled on.
We take CFAs every 3 weeks.
We see the teachers observing the students, and teachers learning.
Once we take a CFA, SQC, or an NOM, our teacher gives us feedback. If students don't understand the standard is taught again. When we miss a question, our teachers decide if we just missed it or if it was taught wrong. We also take SQCs every week. Feedback is when you get an opinion what you should do better. We take I-Station once a month.
We see teachers getting feedback from our principals.
The SQCs have I-Station questions.
And now we have the teachers and the students, so this is our team, it's all of us, and we're here to stand for any questions if there are any questions.
You all did an amazing job, students. I'm very proud of you. Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, teachers. You're amazing.
All right, moving to the Board Leadership Spotlight. There's no one designated there for tonight, for the last time. And I just want to open it up for our board members to talk, since we have many new members on the board, give them an opportunity to kind of give their initial impressions of the board. And I want to congratulate all the new members and the new organization of our board that begins with a new year tonight and begin to move towards making things even better for the school district for the next year. And so I just open it up for anyone who would like to comment on their experiences so far with being a school board member. Anybody want to relate to us?
I'll just say it's a big learning curve, and I got a little lesson, couple months, yes. But it is really great to hear from the inside how great our schools and students are doing, and also, how we can make it better. And it seems like, at least tonight, there's a really great curve going on, so it's good.
I'm definitely looking forward to working with everybody and getting feedback how we can improve our schools and make it better, make our community stronger. And I'd encourage everybody to do the best that we can possibly do, because the kids are, that's our future. So whatever we can do to benefit them, I think that's important.
You're not new, but you
No, I think they're doing, the teachers and the students are doing a great job of it. We see it every month when they come up and they give us their analysis and everything, and I think everything's going good. Welcome the new board members. And have some fun.
Well, thank you all very much for being here tonight, and hope you continue to come to our board meetings. All right, I'll move on then to the consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve that consent agenda? It's been moved. Is there a second?
I second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda is passed. Thank you. As part of the public schools accountability procedures, and as recommended by the state auditor, 3 bills were randomly selected and audited by the board. The board also reviewed a monthly report of activity funds. All procedures met state and district regulations. We're now getting ready to go into our action section of the board meeting, in which we will allow and ask for public comment on any of the items that are on the agenda. Comments will be limited to 10 minutes, and time limit is given in an effort to allow public input, but also to move the agenda forward in a prompt and efficient manner. So with that, we will move to the first action item. Dr. Romero.
Thank you, Mr. President. We do have 2 action items for the evening. The first one being approval of budget adjustment request, or BARS. We have 3 items under that: transportation, migrant, and McKinney-Vento. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mrs. Doyle to kind of give us an update on these, and then stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Romero. You do have before you 4 BARS, and I apologize, they're kind of out of order. I got the information came a little late. So I'm going to go in the order that they're actually in your packet, but they are numbered at the beginning for your reference. The first one, you've heard me speak about getting some reimbursement for both our K-5 and extended learning transportation. Transportation is one of the main costs of both of these programs, and the state has given us some funds for reimbursement for the contracting of the transportation. So both the first and second bar that you see are initial budgets for the funds that the state has given us. You can see that it's broken out into both the K-5 transportation and extended learning transportation. There's 2 different funds, so we will be submitting to the state for reimbursement that we have already, for expenses we've already incurred for that cost. Any questions on those? The second one is for McKinney Vento. This is our final allocation, just over $1,000. There's some that is going to gas and some that is going to general supplies and materials. And then finally, for our immigrant funding, the last bar is related to, I'm requesting to move budget for our Family Leadership Institute professional development.
And so I guess my question is on the last one, why are we moving the money from the supplies and materials to professional development?
Because that is currently where we have the funds to do so.
Okay, you'll have to explain that a little more to me.
So when we budget, we budget based on what we see at the beginning of the year. We budgeted this particular grant last May, and so there was, we don't really know what that's going to look like. Usually, we look very closely at salaries and professional development, things like that. We are not as intricately involved in the supplies and materials. So a lot of times supplies and materials is really a place that we would like to, let me figure out how I want to say this. Supplies and materials is a category that we do not require the level of detail that we do at the other lines. That's how I want to say that. So a lot of times when we do have adjustments, that's where we pull from.
Okay, and so we're gonna spend, this is the McKinney Vento money?
No, this is the immigrant funding.
Okay, and so we're gonna spend that money on professional development related to immigrant issues?
What kind of professional development?
Mr. Parker.
President and members of the board, Dr. Romero. So one of the things to kind of piggyback on what you're saying, so when we build out this budget, we look at general supplies and materials in anticipation of what we need. Oftentimes we get to the point, depending on what the population is at the time, we may say, actually, we need more general supplies and materials because we have specific needs. In some cases, more often than not, we end up finding that, well, we actually have more in there that we need. So keep that in mind. Now, for the professional development end of it, what we had is a turnover in the number of people who were trained in the Family Leadership Institute. We had 2 employees that actually retired and one that has moved to a different position. So now to continue to do this, there's been a history of doing this Family Leadership Institute where we bring parents in and we train them up on how to help support their children, how to communicate with the school, how to navigate, as you all, some of you are new board members, learning to navigate that educational environment. This Leadership Institute trains some staff to actually build that capacity in some of our parents. In order to do that, we have to send them out for the training. So when we went back and looked at where do we have the money to be able to move to continue this program on there, it was in general supplies and materials to move to this professional learning Family Leadership Institute. So that's where the bulk of that's going to be.
Doesn't that affect the other fund, that what it's intended for?
If it was going to affect the general supplies and materials, we wouldn't look at moving that. We would look at a different funding source. Oftentimes, it would probably be like a Title I funding source. In some cases, there's Title III funding sources that allow for that too. But in this case, we have the general supplies and materials. These kinds of funds, if we don't expend them, they will hold them, and then we won't be able to use those until they release those at the end of the year. The problem is if you keep those in there, then the state actually holds those and says, okay, you can't spend those any longer, and then they release them to you in what we like to refer to as the 11th hour, and all of a sudden you're finding yourself having to go and do these budget adjustments again and expand. And oftentimes, more than we like to, it ends up in frivolous expenditures. Let's hurry up and spend it because it's June 15th and we need to have it spent by June the 30th and things like that. So by doing these adjustments as we go along, we meet the need for the professional development to meet the long-term goals as a district, as well as shore up the areas where we have funds that won't get spent in time. So that's kind of how those different pieces work. Suffice to say that we assure that we have the general supplies and materials for the support for the current students we have right now. Otherwise, we wouldn't be making these moves.
You can see actually that even after removing the $7,000, there's still $11,000 that we have available to spend on supplies and materials.
Right, okay.
So we are not completely depleting that fund, just the excess that we have.
Okay. So we're basically providing the professional training for the 3 new people doing this job, is that right?
Correct.
Trainer.
It is the trainer, so they will be coming in. And we actually had, for the last couple of years, we had, what's it, Colonel Kickbush. I don't know if some of you were at the opening ceremonies, and she's actually launched this initiative to help support families. It's very, very heavily rooted in building capacity in the family, so that way the children look at that as the model example and kind of empowers them to go through. So it's really rooted in this whole transformative model of the parent, the family, being the model of excellence for the children. And with that, there's all kinds of subtleties of how you recruit parents, how you build trust, how you communicate and ensure that both languages, the language is not a barrier, that socioeconomic circumstances are not barriers, to remove these trainings away from in the district to more neutral zones so parents don't feel alarmed and come into that. And so it's pretty complex, and so there, to do that, you have to get trained and then certified to be able to do that.
Okay, thank you all for explaining.
No, you're welcome. Thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Maybe just because we have so many new board members, maybe give about a 5-minute or less explanation as just what McKinney-Vento is.
Well, this one, so McKinney-Vento is actually for our homeless youth. So the McKinney-Vento program is part of a federal program that provides funds for districts who have students who are experiencing homelessness. In short, homelessness is much more than just the very dire circumstances that we would see families living on the street. Oftentimes it's displaced families who are having to live temporarily with other family members, whether it's short-term, long-term, things like that. So we categorize all those families and make sure that we have support mechanisms to get them to school, to prevent barriers keeping them from enrolled, and doing all these other things that sometimes happen to families who are homeless, and that's where the McKinney-Vento program comes in. A lot of social work, a lot of coordination of services, and a lot of community views of how we provide the wraparound services for our students and families.
Thank you.
Well,
Dr. Romero?
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to add, as we are able to receive grants, as we build budgets, and this is going to kind of go into place for anything that we do with the program, we want to be able to put the money into the line items that we believe at the time we're going to try to get as accurate as possible. And then over time, as in reality, once it starts to play out, that's where we start to see that we maybe need to move things from place to place to best meet the needs of the intentions of the grant. And so this is a good example of what that is. Over time, we saw a different need, but I think it's a great conversation to say that we don't want it to affect what the outcomes are for students when it comes to instructional materials. But that we, in this example, this would be a good example to make sure that the program is successful, that the adults that are involved have the training to be able to do that without sacrificing the need for having a lack of instructional supplies. So great conversation. And then there's also the ability to maybe supplement that in other areas too if we got to that point. So thank you for the conversation. It's excellent. With that, if there's no further questions, I do recommend the approval of the budget adjustment request for transportation, migrant, and McKinney-Vento.
It's been recommended to approve item A. Is there a motion? Is there a second? It's been moved and seconded to approve item A. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Item B, Dr. Monroe.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a permanent cash transfer. Again, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Doyle.
Thank you, Dr. Romero. So before you have a permanent cash transfer, and what we are doing here is we are, without the approval of both the board and public education department, we are not allowed to move cash between funds. And so the first 2 funds that you will see is both our K-5 and K-5 pilot, and we have $4 in cash in both of those. That is due to rounding when we made some reclassifications, and so I'm just asking for your approval to go ahead and move it from both of those funds to the operational fund. Now the one that you'll see, the third one, for about $2,700, this is a transfer that I've been trying to figure out for quite some time. If you'll look at the description, back in 2016 is when this actually occurred. And so I have been trying to find out what happened, and so I could articulate why I thought we needed to move it. I just recently found the documentation that showed me what actually happened. So I don't know how much detail you want me to go into, I'm happy to, but suffice it to say that I'm requesting that we move the cash to operational because ultimately that's where the expense was incurred. While we requested we requested and received the funds from PED, after that happened, the funds got moved, and so it left the cash in the fund. And so I'm requesting that we move the cash so that we can recoup the operational funds.
And so, again, I'm still
No,
learning.
no, please.
Okay, so it says sub-fund and then there's a number, so what fund are we moving it
So
from?
we are moving it from 24174, so that, anything with the second digit 4, that's our federal fund. So I'm requesting that we move it from our federal fund to our operational fund, which is the 11,000.
Okay, and are you saying that's where it should have been at the beginning?
Yes.
Okay. And is this part of, like, correcting an audit issue, or?
It is, yes. So in a reimbursable fund like that, you should never have cash, because what should happen is we expend the money, we receive a reimbursement from PED. We expend more money, we receive, so we receive money to the extent that we have expenses, so we should never actually have cash. And in these cases, we actually have cash, so I'm not requesting to transfer.
Any other comments or questions? Dr. Romero?
Thank you, Mr. President. I do recommend the approval of the permanent cash transfer.
The recommendation is to approve item B. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Item B is accepted. Thank you. And that finishes our action items for this board meeting, so we'll move on then, Dr. Romero, to the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the board. We have a few highlights we want to go over tonight. With that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Whittle first to talk to us about some human resources updates.
Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Romero, it is January, and January in HR is a very, very busy month. We are already making preparations for upcoming budget and staffing meetings for each of our sites. We're also doing a lot of legwork in just across the district, working with our teachers. I know, and Ms. Cox is here, there's been a lot of work in our department from the end of December to current, working with teachers whose licensure will be expiring, assisting them and getting them up and ready for updates and renewal as we move into the year. Also working with level 2 teachers who will be submitting dossiers to advance to level 3 and get their level 3 licensure this year. We're also we're continually onboarding new staff. We've actually started several people today in new positions across the district, so that's been very exciting for them. I think it's also, as Dawn's here, Dawn at my little school, we have recently, and we're very happy to celebrate with her, she has had 4 of our early childhood EAs actually advance and move into teaching positions, and they started in their teaching positions, I believe 3 of them today, and 2 will soon follow. So that's been exciting also to assist with them. So a lot going on.
Thank you. Some finance updates that don't have to do with bars and cash.
That's all we do. Are you kidding me? So we also were busy preparing for budget. There's been some analysis that we've done for the LFC that we've provided. One of the things that I'm very excited about is we will be implementing some new software as it relates to field trips. And the struggle that we have now is that our finance system doesn't really talk to our transportation system. We will be getting a new software that integrates fully both when you book a trip all the way through to the finance where you encumber and release those encumbrances. So I'm really excited about that. We are not going to be implementing it until the next year. I don't want to drop it on somebody in March when we're doing the most field trips for the year, but it is something we're going to have available July 1, so I'm really excited about that. And next board meeting, we will be approving the financial statements for fiscal year 20. The state auditor will have released those just in time to start our new audit.
So with the new software, will it make it simpler for teachers and coaches to get their trips in and plan and all that?
The interface from that side will not change very much. I mean, it'll look different, it'll look more similar to it does, for iVision. What will be helpful is that from the finance perspective, we will be able to compare, what the trip will cost to the budget and do they have those funds? And if they don't, we can work with them to figure out how we can get the funds or can they go on the trip at all? And then once they've gotten the trip or gone on the trip, it will be an electronic process versus what it is manual now, where we will book that expense and then release any of that encumbrance that hasn't been utilized.
Other questions?
Thank you.
President Anderson,
Yes.
members of the board, Dr. Romero. I want to take this opportunity just to kind of rewind a little bit and share with the new board members some of the things that we've been have started at the beginning of this year for curriculum instruction. One of the areas in curriculum instruction that we oversee is the Department of Equity, Counseling, and other some social service areas. Well, last year, as we started to think about how we're going to look at the possibility of community schools, what partnerships that could look like, we received an opportunity to partner with the New Mexico Foundation of Dental Health, Research, Education, and what they're going to be doing come April 25th through the 26th is going to be an entire free clinic to Deming, New Mexico. It'll be at the whole faculty building in high school. It'll be an entire weekend event where anybody who comes to the event will receive free vision care, medical care, and dental care. And so they'll triage it out. We'll have doctors and all kinds of different things there. And it's one of those unique opportunities for us to kind of really stretch our legs and look at what this community kind of support, these full wraparound services, if you will. Mr. Anderson, you almost kind of gave me an in talking about the support for the McKinney-Vento students and things like this. This is kind of another aspect that we're going to celebrate to offer anybody in the county and regionally. And so we expect probably about 1,500 families, individuals to be coming and taking advantage of these free services over there. To kind of give you an example, children who maybe have not had an opportunity to get their eyes checked and need glasses and things like that will be able to kind of have that all done. And by the time they walk out, they will have custom-made lenses and glasses for them, regardless of prescription. Some minor dental procedures can be done. Once again, some minor medical procedures will be done. And so we're going to be offering that to all of the Luna County for sure, and I imagine some of the other surrounding counties as well. So I wanted to kind of get that out to you. On January the 31st, we're going to be doing a little of a roundtable planning session where we're going to be looking at how we market this, look at community volunteers, other partners with other medical agencies, possibly setting up booths with mental health services and things like that to really get that word out, the type and the quality of services that we can provide in this area. So I wanted to put that because you'll have a lot of people that will be asking you. You'll hear it on the radio. We'll start to see some media blasts through our public information office. And so I wanted to kind of get that out, and I'll be sharing more. And actually, once we put all the pieces together, bring the presentation to you probably about maybe February is coming a little close, but by March, so that way you can get an idea of what that's going to look like. We're partnering with activities, facilities, the high school, so many different agencies kind of coming together to make this happen. And the beautiful thing about it, just like Val shared, is that from the eyes of children, this is removing the barriers that often keep children from coming to school and from families getting the health care they need to get kids in school. So I'd just take that moment to share that with you.
We will need volunteers, so we'd love for you to be able to volunteer. Any of you out there, we'll be looking for volunteers.
We'll come hunting for you.
Yes. Any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, we're excited about it. It's going to be a great opportunity for the community. Mr. Ahu, construction updates. I don't know if you've driven by the high school, the south parking lot. Looking a little different today.
Yes.
Thank you.
So lots going on at the high school. President Anderson, board members, Dr. Romero. We've seen a lot of progress over the last several weeks. So as it stands right now, the tennis courts are probably about 95% complete. We're kind of holding off on painting them just to make sure that the weather is conducive to what we want to do. Baseball field, there's a lot of progress there. We're seeing the dugouts being completed. A lot of the infield work is starting. A lot of the material for the outfield is being brought in. The auditorium, you'll see that the steel's being erected, the painting's completed. Whole Facket, we got the parking lot completed, the asphalt. We're waiting on lights. After that, we'll get it striped. Some of these other ones, Chaparral Systems, we had a meeting yesterday in Albuquerque to complete the 50% CD review of that project, of the systems upgrade, the HVAC upgrade for Chaparral. Went very well. The multi-purpose room is on the same track. We're about 95% through CDs with that. Memorial ES, or the elementary, the classroom wing edition, is about 95% through CDs. We should see completion of that design probably at the end of January through the first part of February. So we're on track. Our security projects for 2019, we're still waiting to meet with the contractor to get those addressed. And security projects 2020, we've sent out an RFQ. We've evaluated the design professional proposals, and we're waiting to make a decision on that. We're going through the evaluation process to finalize that and get a design professional on board. Lastly, the 11-month walkthrough for Whole Facket was completed. The contractor that was on that job is finishing up the findings from that walkthrough. And with that, if you have any questions, let me know. There's a lot of stuff that happened over the break, which is good. But any questions?
Are there a lot of big issues in the walkthrough?
Not really big issues, just minor stuff that maybe we missed through the punch list and we caught this second go round, but nothing really major.
There were some motion sensitive interior lights in Whole Facket that weren't coming on and going off when they were supposed to. Was all of that caught?
As far as I know, yes. We have no issues that I know of as far as the lighting.
There were several that were problems, but they know better than I do. Is the baseball field on schedule for planting? Will it be usable this year, or we have to wait till next year?
It'll be usable this year, so we're working through some technical things that we need to do. So we're going to be planting sod soon, but through that process, there's some time that we need to allow for that sod to establish itself, right? So it'll be usable this year, but maybe not as soon as we thought.
Maybe in time for district games or something?
We're hoping. And we're continuing to have those discussions. We're continuing to work with Mr. Wertz and his team, and we'll get as much information as we can to make a solid decision before we let anybody on that field.
Last question. You talked about the lights for the south parking lot. Are there lights being put on the new soccer field? Because they're still not there.
Not that I'm aware of, not yet.
We're supposed to do lights?
No, so we do have the infrastructure for the lights, the wiring is there, but it was not part of the 2.3. So that will be something that the board needs to decide on. And then what we're looking at is lights for the soccer fields and the baseball fields. So everything is there. We just need to purchase the lights to install them. So not yet, not part of this project. Good question. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's looking good. That south parking lot looks wonderful. That brand new asphalt.
And they're going to start putting the new fence up around the south end shortly, I guess.
Yes.
Last, you got to hear from me. Really excited, and I won't take much time. I just want to take a few minutes just to really say thank you to our teachers. I was able to take a group of teachers and leaders from some of our school sites over the last few days, and it was a good opportunity to really get re-energized for the work that we're doing. You heard Bell Elementary, you heard some of the wonderful successes that they've had. They've had some tremendous growth over the last few years, but it also tells a picture that we still have a long ways to go. And so what we wanted to do was take some time to be able to reflect on what we've done and where we need to go next. And what's really wonderful is to be able to hear from the teachers about what work that they have done, how it has dramatically improved the outcomes for students, but again, what's going to come next, because the work is not done yet. We're not even close to being done yet. But again, some wonderful outcomes have happened so far. In fact, those wonderful outcomes have really come across the entire district to the point where we have been asked by the Public Education Department to come out and train other schools throughout the state on how we were able to accomplish what we accomplished over the last couple of years. I'm very excited about that. This is going to give another opportunity for people out in the school sites to be able to show others how to make improvements in a dramatic fashion in their school sites across the state. But some of the things we wanted to absolutely ask the teachers is, what are some of the things that we want to celebrate? What are you proud of over the last couple of years? And so with that, I'm going to give a little list of some of the things that they talked about. They really enjoyed the weekend review. That's something that you all get on the weekends. But what the other part to that is, one is we want to be able to inform the board on some of the things that the schools are proud of, the departments are proud of when it comes to what their goals are as a department or a school. But it's also very informative for the schools themselves, because they can see from each other what they've done, what they're doing, and it's a great opportunity to be able to share those things. And so when we have one school that's accomplished something, it kind of makes the other school want to do it too. So it's a positive outcome for the different school sites. Another area that was really powerful that we heard from teachers and leaders is that we're all speaking the same language now. If we look into the past, a lot of times we call things different things. We call assessments different things. We call curriculum different things. And so when we had common conversations, it was hard to even just have that conversation because we didn't have a common language. And so it took some doing, but now we do have that common language for how we talk about student outcomes, student growth, assessments, curriculum, all those different types of areas. So that was a huge win for us. But with that came alignment. So when we have a student that moves from Bell Elementary to Baton Elementary, there's alignment between those schools now. So a student can ideally be able to move out of one school and come into the other school and still be on pace to be able to keep doing what they've been doing without skipping a beat. And so that has been a positive outcome. But some of the other things that I really love to hear from teachers is they're feeling more empowered. They're feeling trust between their leaders and their grade levels departments. They've also become risk takers to be able to try new things, be able to see how things are working. Many times they see positive outcomes, but even when things don't go that well, they learn from that too. So positive things, but also that they care about each other. We are Deming Public Schools, and we've talked a lot about that, about what that means to us. And it was great to be able to have that conversation come back up about how we are Deming Public Schools. And so with that, we wanted to talk about what comes next, because everybody agreed that we are on the right path. We need to continue on that right path. So it's really reestablishing that sense of urgency, to know that we have come a long way, but we have a lot more work to do. And it was great to see those principals and teachers excited about the work that's coming ahead. We also talked about, really looking at those short-term wins. It's important to know that the work that we're doing does not happen overnight. And so for us to stay engaged and to be able to keep high spirits, we need to be able to see those short wins. And that's what we're able to do every month as we come in and schools are able to talk about what they're doing, is they are actually celebrating those small wins, because those small wins add up, and they add up, and they add up. And over time, we start to see 200, 500, 800% gains, which is what we saw tonight with Bell Elementary. So we're really excited about that. But also, we're able to start to brainstorm just really new, inventive ways to be able to tackle new problems. And you got to hear that tonight, how we deal with homelessness, how we deal with students that have trauma in their lives, how we deal with students that are coming to us 18 to 2 years behind developmentally. And so exciting things are happening, and because of that, the rest of the state is really seeing us. But again, we have a long ways to go, but I am very proud of this team that we have out here, because there's no place I'd rather be than be doing this work with these people. So thank you very much for what you do, and it was also great to be able to ask them how I can support them on a daily basis, and we were able to talk about that. And I want to be able to continue to get that feedback from all of you, principals, assistant principals, TOSAs, teachers, EAs, nurses, counselors, custodians, everyone out there. We do this together. Thank you for what we do, and we are Deming Public Schools. So with that, I do stand for any questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes our superintendent's section of the day. Move this to announcements. Maybe our board members have any announcements from anyone? All right. Board members, please don't forget to complete your Plus Delta forms. This is our self-evaluation. Are there any board member requests for agenda items for the next meeting?
Are we doing budget next week?
That's going to be on the work session.
Oh, okay.
Anything for the regular meeting?
So I do have two, there is one item that we do need to absolutely have on the budget on that, and the question is the wellness policy. And that's pretty comprehensive. So with that, we do also, there's lots of work to be done ahead of us. I do want to have some updates for budget. It's that time of year to absolutely be talking about our budget for next year. So with those are two big items. I also like to do some legal updates for all of you. And as we get to the legislative session, we'll start to see what starts to roll out, what we think is going to be happening, and to be able to continue to give you updates on those areas also.
Great.
I think the other issue that I would like to add in, and I don't know if it's under the agenda, but I would like to discuss maybe changing our agenda a little bit, or at least allowing for additional public comment.
We're going to revise this agenda. It's
Okay.
going to the policy committee very soon.
Okay.
It is high on my agenda. There's several things on here that will be fixed.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. The next regular board meeting is scheduled for February the 20th, but I understand we have a conflict with that because ASBO is meeting at the same time. So what are we going to do?
And I will also be out of town that day.
So February 20th is a Thursday. ASBO is happening. There's a couple of possibilities. We can move it to a week before, a week after. We can move it to a Tuesday. I'm open to all those things.
Any of that is fine.
Any preference?
Good.
You can do it Tuesday?
Tuesday the 18th?
18? Any conflicts? Is that okay with everybody? All right.
Okay.
Next regular board meeting then will be on Tuesday, February the 18th at 5 p.m. here in this room.
Thank you, everybody.
Note to change your calendars. You don't show up on the wrong day. You just hear crickets. All right, with that, any reason we don't adjourn? Otherwise, I will say, or adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night.